coming at you with another Wizard Hall video. Yes, we're always scouring the internet for copies of Wizard Magazine, and we were not disappointed this time around. We have several issues ready to join the archives, but first we're going to share them with you and see what kind of nostalgia they bring. Now, I will say my favorite thing is to find people that are literally liquidating their own personal collection of Wizard Magazine, right? They're not resellers. They're not trying to jack up the price. They're just saying, I got to move these things out. They'll give you a decent price. They'll combine shipping. You know how it goes. So this first group here, these are all sealed copies of later issues of Wizard in the larger format. So, of course, we have Jessica Alba here as Sue Storm yet again. It's one of those things, right, where you're just like, between Sin City and Fantastic Four movies, all these genre pictures. She was getting the attention of the nerds and geeks out there. Back in the day, once this started happening, though, not a lot of actual goodies, right? We were getting more order forms, so a little disappointing on the pack-ins. But here we have, hey, you gotta get more babes on the cover. I'm sure that was the Wizard motto at this time. So you have Evangeline Lilly during her Lost days. Little did we know she would be playing the Wasp someday, which is pretty cool. Hope Van Dyne. And again, it's some more order forms here. You get a chessboard. Is that a Lord of the Rings? That's just fantasy crystal. Just non-denominational. Is that what you would call that? Fantasy? Just generic fantasy. Here we go, though, with Ultimate Alliance, the best of 2006. So this is telling you all about the video games. And this is actually an issue that I'm pretty sure I've showed before, but I don't think it was a sealed copy. So we're cool to have that. Hey, look who it is again. There she was for the first movie, and she's back for Rise of the Silver Surfer. It was a movie. It was definitely a movie. Dr. Doom on a surfboard, huh? I don't know. I think these were better than we could have asked for and hoped for. But overall, maybe not what we are planning to get once the MCU gives us the true Fantastic Four. So very excited about that. Here we are, though, with, I love this, Summer Smash. So when we got Iron Man and Hulk in the same summer, remember those early days of the MCU? Oh, it was such a magical time. We couldn't believe it. I still have my Slurpee cups from Iron Man. It looks like we got a Star Wars novel set here. Is that what's going on? Yep. Graphic novel library that you could order. That's pretty cool. Next one here. This is something I remember hearing a lot about. Alex Ross doing this superpowers thing with all these basically public domain heroes. But I think I picked up one or two issues that I was just like, what was it? The Green Llama, I think was one of his characters. And I'm just like, I love the Shadow. I love that era of, the early creations, but it just wasn't for me, even with Alex Ross covers. Let's see here. Oh, Heroes! Oh, the return of Heroes, season 2, the one that disappointed everybody. I wasn't even super on board with the first season of Heroes. I remember checking out, the first few, and then once I found out I had a friend who was cut from the pilot, then I was like, okay, I'll watch some more. But here we are with some Star Trek, and is this one what I think? Oh no, it's science fiction. For some reason I thought I saw Wallace and Gromit on there, but I like this here exclusive. The first chapter of Brad Meltzer's new novel. So Brad Meltzer was writing comics, and now they're promoting his novels. I mean, I know he was a novelist first, but it's just funny that they gotta kind of scratch his back a little bit too there and be like, all right, we'll promote your novel. Dark Reign, ooh, I love when the villains kind of team up. Doesn't that make things more fun than it's just one diabolical, megalomaniacal villain? They're all working together. But, Namor and White Queen are the villains? Interesting. Check this out here. We got some Disney movies. DVD, which was all the rage. What year was this? This was 2009. Yeah, so we were steeped in DVD at this time. But also notice that this is the Platinum Edition. So special Platinum Edition issue. They had to do everything they could to make it seem like an event. Here we go with this one, though. Darksiders. I'm pretty sure this is one we already had in the archives too, but at the same time, maybe we didn't. I'm pretty sure I double-checked. I'm trying to keep a list. I'm trying to get organized here. The good news is, when I get extra copies, they end up as giveaways to you. But Darksiders, I know nothing about, because it's a video game, but it was Joe Madureira, who everybody loved from his comics, but then was now designing video games. So again, they little crossover in pop culture. All right, so that was that haul that I got. Very cool seller, very nice. But then I found another set of issues which really surprised me. These were ones that I was not expecting. Now, this is, the original format. This is from when the 2000 X-Men movie came out. They made a whole bunch of covers that Joe Jusko was painting of the various characters, Sabretooth and Wolverine and Mystique and stuff. So we just needed to keep getting the variant covers to have all of them. You see, we actually get an X-Men movie poster there. Didn't it look cool? It was pretty good. Yeah, I don't know. Again, not my favorite. I've been online lately talking about I'm not super excited Hugh Jackman is coming back for Deadpool 3, because in my mind, that basically says he's still Wolverine, everybody, and it's officially an MCU movie. It's the first Deadpool movie in the MCU, so now he's the Wolverine of the MCU, or at least the first one. I just want a fresh start. I want a new character. I want to see who could do something with it. So, anyway, love the guy, very entertaining, charismatic, but not my Wolverine. Hashtag. Right, all right, here we go. So these are the big ones, though. These are the ones I got super excited about because we have, the first, huge run of the, like I say, it's mostly like a few little spaces at the last 2 or 3 years that we have to fill in to have the complete archive. But when we can find variants from the early days, or rather variants in, I guess, distribution is what I would call it, which is, look at this. How many of you picked up your copy of Wizard Magazine at Toys R Us? Yes, if you look here, there's a Toys R Us price tag. We have the Wizard seal on this. I mean, just look at this. The world's #1 comic book magazine. I mean, it is just so cool. Look, it's brought to you by ProGuard, because that's what they were wanting to promote. But this was just so huge to me because I'll be honest, I was buying my Wizard at Barnes & Noble and occasionally at the comic book store. I was not buying them at Toys R Us. But it was cool to think that, yes, the 25th issue could have been yours at Toys R Us. Now, and also, take a look at this. You actually got a discount when you look at the price there, because the cover price was $3.95, okay, but you could get it for $3.49. Oh, a little discount there. Now, the thing about this, though, what I realized is, although it was a cool way to get copies of the magazine for kids who were there to buy comic book action figures, it doesn't come with the promotional item. It doesn't come with the pack-ins. So it's one of those things where that, in particular, came with a 25th issue anniversary Pog, except that Wizard called it a GOP. Because Pog was officially trademarked. So I just think that's hilarious that, they had a Pog in there, but you could not get the Pog at the toy store where you're buying your copy of Wizard. So one more reason either to subscribe or get the newsstand edition. So we're always on the lookout for those variants. If you know of some other version of how things were selling, look, stuff's falling all over the place around here. But we're excited. There's more to come. So thank you so much for checking out this video. Want to give you another reminder, if you have not signed up yet to be part of our fantasy superhero draft that's taking place on October 13th, now is the time. There's literally only 8 spots. If you haven't watched the video, make sure you check it out here on YouTube, which is basically Michael did a whole PowerPoint presentation breaking down how the event's going to run. But essentially, you just get to pick from a roster of 90s DC and Marvel heroes and create your ideal superhero team, or at least you're going to fight it out for the characters that you really want to have on your team. It's just like a fantasy football draft. If you're not a sports guy like me, it's A-okay. If you're just a fan of superheroes, of course we've always had those rosters in our mind who we thought would be a great teamed up together or in a crossover, however you want to do it. So check it out, and until next time, keep your books bagged and boarded.
I normally would have prepared more.
This meeting is being recorded.
I'm going to turn my video off too, just to save Adam's bandwidth and,
There we go.
protect us.
Okay.
I have to apologize. I'm not as prepared as I was the last time. I didn't even get a chance to read the magazine again. It's buried in my garage under.
Oh, wow. That's fine. Like I said, well, all we want is your opinions and your, up to the minute reactions.
Let's put it this way. You said that you're not as prepared. I have literally just opened it for the first time 1 second ago. So
well, that's why. That's why I wanted to be more prepared. I knew you.
I have. We'll talk about it as we get into it.
Yeah, we'll get into it here. All right.
Okay.
All right, so I'll count us down and we will get into it. So 3, 2, 1. Greetings, geeks, and welcome to episode 62 of Wizards, the podcast guide to comics. The podcast where we re-examine the 90s comic book boom through the pages of Wizard magazine. Still waiting for the crossover between DC Comics' The Ray and Claymation Ray Charles from the old California Raisins commercial. I'm Adam.
And still unable to comprehend Adam's obsession with old TV ads from the 80s that nobody was ever made to remember. I'm Michael.
And back on the podcast tonight is a guy for whom the old adage, a comic a day keeps the doctor away, is a way of life. Even though that saying was literally just made up by me for the podcast. It's our pal, Mike Schwartz, aka 50 Cent Comic Collector. Welcome back.
Thank you so much for having me back. I'm very excited to be back on. And I have to say, I do believe a comic a day keeps the doctor away. I'm the only one in the house that collects comics, and I'm currently the only one that is not sick. So I really believe that's true. And I have bought.
You came to New Jersey and got everybody sick?
No, see, they went on to Denver, my family. I came to New Jersey. But since I've been back, I have bought, I think, oh my God, maybe 9 long boxes of 50 Cent comics.
What?
So I'm feeling really good, guys. Feeling really
Well, we got to ask you this, because obviously that's your stock and trade for those of you who follow Mike on Instagram, and he is posting, these awesome comics from his collection. He'll throw them out to you.
Yeah, he finds some real gems. And I have to point this out. If you don't follow 50 Cent Comic Collector, you should, because he posts these really clever things. And also, he's got a countdown of how many comics he's read, or like, what are you at now? What was the start number for the year, and what are you at this point? Like,
this other Instagrammer, I think his name is like Weapon X Squall or something. I forget the exact handle. He challenged me to it. He said, "Oh, I was challenged. I'm challenging you to read 500 comics by the year's end." At which, when he told me that, I was like, "I'll be done that in 3 months." But I've been working in VFX, and I'm sure you've read a lot about VFX recently from Marvel.
Yeah.
About all the Marvel controversy, and I work for a company that does Marvel effects. So I don't work on any Marvel shows, but I am privy to a lot of stuff that goes on them. And even not being on a Marvel show, I'm up till like midnight some nights delivering shots. So my whole life has like completely changed since jumping back into VFX, and I don't have the time like I used to read as many comics. So I think I'm currently at 180 left. I have 180 left to hit 500.
Wow. I mean, I could go on a huge tangent on VFX, but I have to just ask, and this is totally just me nerding out about this type of stuff. What do you use? Like Cinema 4D? Do you use Lightroom? What do you Lightwave or whatever? What do you guys use?
Well, okay, so I'm just a production manager. Let me say that first. So I'm not an artist. They use what do they use? What programs? Maya,
yeah.
Oh my God, I'm blanking. You just had to ask me the tough question.
That's okay.
Let the man talk
I
about
don't open the
comics,
program.
Michael. He's been thinking about VFX all day. Let the man take a break here.
I have a lot of interest, and comics are one, movies and VFX are another, and I just like to nerd out. So I had to ask. But Adam cut all this out anyway because it's just me rambling.
I'm going to cue the Going Off theme song.
Yes, please do.
after we're done recording, you can ask me anything you'd like.
Sounds
There we
good.
go.
Tangent time with Mike. Boom, 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 boom.
But Mike, let me ask you this: since you are posting so many comic covers for people to look at, if you had to pick one comic cover to post on Instagram every day for a year straight, if that was the challenge we were giving to you, what cover do you think you would choose? What is your favorite comic book cover?
And does it have to be a 50-cent comic
No.
I bought?
No,
No.
just across the board. Yeah.
Well, I would just honestly, I would post my dad's Amazing Fantasy 15 over
Oh,
and over
oh,
and over.
Oh,
That's
wow.
Wow.
Every time I go to his house, my wife's always like, "Where did Mike go?" And I'm usually upstairs in his bedroom flipping to his Amazing Fantasy 15.
Wow. That's crazy.
That is wild. Yeah. Wow.
Well,
Okay,
I actually posted it in my story today. So
I thought so. I thought I saw that. I was like, whoa. Where?
well, I think, when you finally inherit that copy, I'm sure it is on its way to you. Who else could love it more in the many years from now? The question I think people will ask is, hey, how many copies of Amazing Fantasy 15 are out there? What's this one worth? So on and so forth. It's going to make some headlines, and people are not headlines. What am I say? People are going to be writing in to say, Mike, do you think that I could get a look at it? Can I just smell it? Can I just hold it for 10 seconds? So you're going to be getting plenty of correspondence, but who else was getting lots of correspondence? Man, this was a long walk. Was Jim McLaughlin over in the Magic Words column. So guys, it's time we open up Willie Lumpkin's mailbag.
Adam Pope, king of the transition, baby. King of the transition.
Doing what
Woo!
we can.
That was
Hey,
that was wordy.
Guys, can I stop for 1 second?
Of
Yeah.
course.
That's okay. Do you have a link to the actual issue in front?
Yeah, I
cannot
sent it to you.
It's in the email with the same same as the show notes. So like it's
Yeah, I said you might look for a separate one that was an invitation to the Google Drive, and there should be a link there.
I have the show notes.
Okay.
hold on. Maybe I could hold on. Let me see if I can.
Yeah,
have
and
the
if you don't
Zoom
have it,
link.
I'll send the link right now to you for the digital.
Okay, I know I got it on my Instagram. Hold on, I think I found it. I think it's here. Because that's what I'm reading from, right? That's it.
Yeah. And so there was that one, but I have like a better scan that came from our Google Drive that I sent to you guys also.
It's a PDF, right?
Yeah, it's a PDF, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's the one I got. Okay.
Okay, perfect
Cool.
then.
So sorry about that. I
No worries. As long as you can read it, you're feeling good about it. So,
Yeah.
all right. So here we go. So in this issue, guys, what's interesting is that, there was discussion about Wolverine's new noseless look and all these other, comic book related items. But of course, we like to go behind the scenes at Wizard. And a lot of people were also curious about how things were operating, coming out of the Wizard offices. So that's a lot of what Jim McLaughlin was answering this time around. So we're going to get into something starting out in the Market Watch section. This is interesting because I usually don't read much from there because lately it's just kind of been like, well, what's this worth? Can you tell me? And they're like, check the price guide or whatever. But somebody had an interesting question here. A gentleman named Bart Tan from the Philippines says, what does a Wizard Ace edition of a comic book look like? I have read that these special editions are being offered as incentives to comic dealers if they order a certain quantity of Wizard every month. And the answer was, the Wizard Ace editions are limited edition reproductions of rare and popular original issues. They have an acetate wraparound cover. In order to get one of these gems, retailers must order a certain number of Wizard magazines from their distributor. Ask your local retailers if they have any. Ace editions, that is. So it's one of those things that have you guys ever seen a Wizard Ace edition comic?
Yeah, I feel like I've seen some like in the back issue bins. I don't think I own any. I may own like a couple. So were these like full reprints with just a new cover, or was it just
exactly?
Yeah. Okay.
So they're basically like in the archives here we have like a Madman Comics one, we have an Ash Ace edition and things like that. Yeah, it's like they say. So it's a reprint of the issue, but it's got a new cover that's literally like a see-through acetate, like an animation cell on the front. and then so you can flip that open and then there's a background behind it. It's a really neat gimmick, but I always wondered where they came from, and now we know they literally were direct to a retailer for a certain volume of Wizard magazines ordered. So there you go, a little incentive back in the day. Got to grease those wheels, right?
It's like the half issues they eventually go to, right?
Well, the half issues, though, were available to everybody that bought a magazine. You could just grab the coupon and mail away and pay for the shipping, and then you got a half issue. But the Ace editions only went to the comic book store owners. You could only get it with your order of Wizard magazine, apparently, according to this letter. So pretty cool to understand that. But Michael, there's another person writing in here who had an interesting request.
So it's funny you do this because your letter was on page 120. Mine was on page 8. You thought of me and you're like, Michael is not going to scroll to 120 pages. Let me give him page 8. It's easy to find. He's not going to screw it up. Here we go. Okay. So a Julian Staros writes, "Dear Wizard, I previously sent you a letter about Havoc being the ex-traitor. Anyway, please don't put it in the magazine. I was wrong. You probably wouldn't have done it anyway, but please don't. Thank you." And then they write, "Okay, no problem."
This guy's freaking out. He's like, people are going to think I'm an idiot because I said Havoc was the X-traitor. It was Professor X all along.
Idiot, moron. Oh, God. No.
Going all Chris Farley on himself. Yeah. But Mike, what about this next one here? I'm curious what we're going to learn about the goings on.
Yes, Matthew Bond of Poplar Point, Manitoba, Canada, a place I've never been to, asks a question about the changes in the drawing tutorial feature. So he says, "I have a question for you. What happened to Greg Capullo's Crash Course? I like that column a lot. Now you've got basic training," which I like too, but not as much. And then they respond with, "We decided to evolve." Is that evolve or evolve?
Yeah.
Evolve. Okay. Evolve our art column into the form that is now basic training so that we could focus on many different aspects of comic art and play to the particular strength of a different artist every month. That's why you've seen the likes of Jimmy Palmiotti on inking and Jim Ballant on drawing women. These guys are artists who are well known for their abilities in these areas. In future months, look for Kelly Jones on setting a dark and spooky. Oh my God, this printout is not as clear as I hope. There we go.
Dark and spooky mood. Yeah.
Mood. It's the O's look like A's, and it's really throwing me off. On setting a dark and spooky mood, and Norm Brayfogle. Who's Bray? I don't even know.
Norm Brayfogle. Yeah.
Fogle. Okay, and on laying out a comic page. And as usual, your recommendations are always welcome.
So I thought that was interesting because, like if you recall, originally it was Bart Sears doing Brutes and Babes. Yeah, then Greg Capullo got Crash Course, and now they're just mixing it up every issue, which is nice. Get some variety.
Do you think they just got too busy? The other artists?
I was going to say, short answer is they're too busy to do a column every single issue. So we're just going to mix it up, and who's available, they'll give us something this month. Sounds great. Thanks, Wizard. There you go.
Now, next here, there's a gentleman named Brian Skiff of Los Angeles, California, who demands to know the identity of the Wizard Bunny. As you guys might recall, Jim McLaughlin had been giving out the Bunny Award for the best letter each month. And not always the best letter for us to read, but there is a person in a bunny costume typing at a desk. And eventually this evolves into a full costume character in the early 2000s that's always dressing up in each issue in a different costume. But here is the deal. Dear Wizard people, who's the guy in the bunny suit? And Jim responds, "This is a surprisingly common question, but it's not a guy in a suit. It's an actual bunny that we found romping on the lawn outside our building. He's actually very friendly, and we've been able to teach him some rudimentary typing skills. Although makes reach of the spacebar a bit of a problem for him. Still, that's nothing compared to the problem we have with him leaving pellets all over the place. Sometimes I think we're too close to those toxic waste dumps in Jersey."
That tracks. I'll say. I'll
Did you visit any of those while you were there, Mike?
No,
All right.
I
And I know. So they're having a little bit of fun with us. We're going to have to ask, because I was told that I don't know who the original Wizard Bunny was in that photo, but later on, they basically would just give the interns the bunny suit. And they're like, put this on. And they're like, oh, it smells terrible. So it's kind of a rite of passage when he went to work in the Wizard offices.
Yeah.
But speaking of working at the Wizard offices, Michael, close us out here.
So the next one is from Wizard staffer Alejandro Arbona.
You have to say future Wizard staffer because he wasn't working there yet.
Oh, well, excuse me. Future Wizard staffer Alejandro Abaro or
Arbona.
Arbona. I'm sorry. My apologies. Yo, Wizardites. I found out Wolverine's first name. It's Cosmo. Cosmo Logan. And if you understand the Seinfeld reference there, Kramer's name was Cosmo, and they found out because Kramer's mother, they meet her at a restaurant, and she's yelling out, "Oh my Cosmo, it's Cosmo!" And they're like, "Your name is Cosmo Kramer," and that's how it came from. And then from then on, he wanted to be called Cosmo for a little while. That's a long digression.
I knew you would appreciate it. I knew you could break it down for us.
Yeah, there you go. That's a different podcast as well. So there you go.
Cosmo Logan, man.
So here's the response. Now here's someone who obviously watches way too much TV.
And there it is. And I don't doubt that that's true. So yeah.
So it says, start reading more comics. Smedley?
I don't know where that originated, but I feel like I've heard it somewhere. Hey, Schmedley.
That's not a Seinfeld reference, though, for sure. Geez, 2 overrated comments, a trading card question, and a first name letter. Wolverine pretty much owned this column. Maybe I should show the guy same respect. Nah, until next month.
Well, there you go. I mean, so I think it's interesting where these letters go, in any direction. Honestly, you just never know. Is somebody playing a joke on the Wizard staff? Are they seriously looking for information? So it's just nice how that plays out. But, if Wolverine's name had been revealed as Cosmo Logan, you better believe that would have been a headline in
Wizard News. Wizard News. I don't know. I'm just trying something different. I like to mix it up a little bit. But anyway, I digress. Our top story tonight, or whenever you're listening to this, is an update to a rumor hinted at last issue, as the headline declares, Gen 13 kids set to crash Gotham. Reportedly being scheduled for release as a 2-issue miniseries in December of 1996, this DC Wildstorm crossover would involve Gen 13's nemesis, Ivana Bayul, okay, great, teaming up with the Joker. According to writer Brandon Choi, Jeff, aka J. Scott Campbell, expressed strong interest in drawing Batman, who has always been one of his favorite characters. We tossed the idea to DC, and Denny O'Neil must have been intrigued by the idea. On the differences between Batman and Gen 13 kids, Choi adds, my favorite analogy is that Batman is the NYPD Blue, while Gen 13 is the Friends comics.
Hey, Michael, can you read that for me one more time? You cut out for some reason.
Sure. Okay.
Just that quote. That's all.
And Denny O'Neil must have been intrigued by the idea. On the differences between Batman and Gen 13 kids, Choi adds, my favorite analogy is that Batman is like NYPD Blue, while Gen 13 is the Friends of comics. Sadly, this crossover never comes to pass, despite the fact that finished promo art featuring all the characters is presented in this issue. Fun fact, in like Detective Comics 1025 or something like that, or 1027, like the last 2 pages of that issue, Gen 13 shows up.
Really? What?
Like a bunch of Wildstorm characters, and like Fairchild is there, Grifter is there. Yeah.
Whoa.
So it's a
That's
big
awesome.
it's a big splash page double thing. So it's pretty cool.
But it makes you wonder what happened to this story. Why didn't it come out? Oh, Michael, this just in. It turns out Brian Cronin at CBR solved the mystery in 2008 during an interview with J. Scott Campbell himself, where the artist explained that he wanted to put Harley Quinn in the book, but since she hadn't yet officially been introduced to DC continuity, that was a no-go. Although the main reason the project fell apart was that, quote, we went back and forth with DC about the story for I think a year or something, and over that period of time, a lot of things in the story were changed. Several of my favorite scenes in the books were eventually removed entirely, such as a really great scene in which Fairchild was in the Batcave, and that really funny car chase scene I mentioned earlier, in which Grudge and Roxy ride along with Batman in the Batmobile. We kept being told that Batman wouldn't do that, or no, they can't be there. It became more and more difficult to put Batman and Gen 13 in the same place at all. I remember joking that I wasn't going to do a crossover, but instead 2 totally separate stories in the same book. When I finally looked over the approved script, I just wasn't excited about it anymore. I told them that I'd much rather get on with my new Danger Girl series. That was now where my heart was. I fully expected them to go on with the story with somebody else drawing it, but that never happened. In the end, I can't help but wonder if Wildstorm also thought that the resulting plot was just too uninteresting to pursue. So there it is, DC mucking up the works. You guys blew it. Get out a blockbuster on your hands. You got to lighten up.
It's weird because it's like DC is like the company of Elseworld stories that I don't know, they don't connect that often. I don't know how this would have thrown off continuity for Harley. I hadn't been introduced.
It would have had nothing to do. But this is, again, it's like history's repeating itself because DC's mucking up the works today in a different way.
Oh yeah.
So speaking of like things they made a mistake on, and I had to just point this out, and it's bothered me. So I just brought Grace to see Super Pets, and I know you brought your kids to see Super Pets too, Adam. You know what I realized? There is not one toy, pajama, anything, coloring book, anything toy related or marketing materials for this movie or these characters. I couldn't find anything anywhere.
I was confused by that.
There was like Grace.
You need to come to Canada.
It's all there?
It's all here. I was just at Toys R Us, and there's a whole giant.
You guys still have Toys R Us?
Oh, yes. You guys don't.
What?
I forgot. Yes.
Yeah, it's gone.
Michael, road trip.
Yeah, we're going to Canada. All right.
I was just at Toys R Us, the local Toys R Us, and there's a massive Super Pet section. So it's up here in Canada, guys.
Yeah.
Wild. Grace is like, I want an Ace puppy, and I'm like, they don't exist. Like, there's not at Target, that's for sure.
Wow. Yeah, you got to send us some pictures of those, cool. Mike, so we could just
next
tease
time
our
I'm
kids
there.
with
My
them.
kids were really into them. We haven't seen the movie yet, but
it's a cute movie. I liked it.
Okay. Cool. Well, in more crossover news, Top Cow Productions, no longer affiliated with Image at this time, is planning a series of crossovers with Marvel Comics in December 1996, with the setup being that Mephisto opens a portal between the two worlds and tricks the Silver Surfer into entering the Top Cow universe, leading into the Weapon Zero Silver Surfer book. Additional team-ups planned to flow from one book into the other include Ghost Rider Ballistic Elektra, because Ballistic is everyone's favorite character, I guess, Elektra Psyblade Wolverine Witchblade, and wrapping up with another Weapon Zero Silver Surfer story as the bookend. Top Cow editor-in-chief David Wohl teases that the portal isn't going to be permanently closed at the end of the 8 issues. Some of our characters may end up in Marvel's universe and vice versa. Yeah, right.
I'm pretty sure that didn't happen.
Although, Mephisto's still missing from the MCU. Who knows what he could do?
Well, what's
You-
crazy is I'm almost certain, if I remember correctly, that they did oh no, it was Loki. I was going to say with the Ultraverse, when Marvel, bought the Ultraverse and was crossing over, but it was Loki. And I was like, oh, I thought they did Mephisto already, but no, not the case.
Guys, let me tell you this. I see these books in the 50-cent bins so frequently, and I cannot help but I can't help but buy the Silver Surfer one, thinking I don't have it, and then discover I have the Silver Surfer one, or the Ghost Rider one. But like, I don't know. Did you guys enjoy these books when they came out?
I had no idea until seeing this whole a news announcement that this was even a thing. I have I've seen some crossover stuff, but none of these.
This was breaking news to me as of 5 seconds ago. So I
Now, another thing here, though, getting back to Gen 13, it's also announced that a spin-off title, Gen 13 Bootleg, will debut in November as a series of short story arcs or one-shots produced by a variety of creative teams. Why this format? Well, as our recent guest on the Wizard Files, Jeff Marriott from Wildstorm, explains to Wizard, quote, there have been a whole lot of people wanting to do Gen 13 stories, but at the same time, Brandon Choi and J. Scott Campbell have an extended story arc they want to tell, and we don't want people getting in the middle of it. Now, top talent that wanted to get their hands on Gen 13 can. And by the way, if you want more behind the scenes details on Jim Lee and Wildstorm and Gen 13, a whole lot of Gen 13, go check out that interview with Jeff Marriott, because he actually wrote many issues of Gen 13, including the second issue of the miniseries. It's crazy. He was all over the place, and a lot of people don't realize he was kind of like the mystery man behind the scenes.
was he the Ghost Rider?
But yeah, it did seem because I just remember Gen 13 was everywhere, and they guest starring in everybody's books. Really, everybody was just calling up Jim Lee and said, hey, can we use Gen 13? Everybody really seems to like him.
You know what's a bummer though? It was all over the place, but they still couldn't get it out into the mainstream. They tried to do that video game that failed. Wasn't there a cartoon they tried to do that failed also?
Yep. Yeah, they tried to do the movie. It just never got released. It got shelved, and yeah.
That's a story for another day as well. Of shelved movies, by the way. Anyway, it's reported that Diamond Comics Distributors has purchased Capital City Distribution, making Diamond the largest distribution company for comics. I thought they're one of the only, they almost have a monopoly in my mind. Their only competition is Heroes World, is the exclusive source for Marvel Comics, and also happens to be owned by the publisher, who is hurtling towards bankruptcy at this time.
That's interesting. I've never heard of Heroes World.
I've heard of Heroes World. I remember the magazine because they used to be able to get it, to see what was coming up.
Yeah, they were based out of New Jersey, I believe. And yeah, they started out as just kind of a mail order catalog thing.
Yeah.
And then Marvel's like, hey, if we buy this company that has a distribution network of some sort, we could turn it into a dedicated pipeline for our comics. And
we'll be vertically integrated. Yeah, that's great. Speaking of Diamond Comics Distributors, the company's owner, Steve Geppi, is reported to have purchased a copy of Action Comics #1 for, and get this, only $61,900 at the Soulsby auction conducted in June of 1996. That is crazy. $61,000. This copy was said to be in the top 10 in terms of condition. Wow. Out of the only 50 copies total to be believed still in existence. That's nuts.
I mean, this is what I'm saying right here. You put that Action Comics right next to your Amazing Fantasy 15. Give Steve a call. See if he wants to trade.
But this has got to be the one that Nick Cage eventually buys for $4 million. I figure it's if it's that high quality, it's got to be.
Yeah, I was gonna say, because he bought, didn't he? I presume he's sold his copy since then to get out of debt too, right?
I don't think Nicolas Cage has his dinosaur bones or anything else.
Yeah,
his island. Yeah.
Wizard ran a poll for their America Online subscribers asking if they could select just 3 X-Men titles to keep as opposed to the 9 currently being published by Marvel. Which would they give a lifeline to? The big winners were Uncanny X-Men, X-Men, and Generation X, which meant that Wolverine, X-Factor, X-Force, Excalibur, X-Men, and Cable were seen as non-essential titles by this group of readers. Oh man. That's a lot of titles. Yeah. What would you guys pick?
I know what Michael would pick.
Well, it depends. At this time,
Yeah, let's do this time.
yeah.
Oh,
Well,
okay.
I would say X Factor.
Really?
Yeah, I like the character design. I don't know.
You weren't a super Cable fan yet, then?
No, I wasn't. I wasn't there yet. I did not like X-Man. I will say that. Even though I do love Cable, I did not particularly like this run as much as the early 2000s run, which is just stunning. And obviously, you have to keep Uncanny and regular X-Men because of the fact that they're just so, they're like the Paramount. That's just like Spider-Man or Amazing Spider-Man. That was a long ramble on my part. I'm sorry.
I'd swap out Gen X with Wolverine. I think, especially at that time period. Yeah, the others were for me.
Yeah, well, I feel like with Wolverine, I would have wanted to cancel that, make sure it was off the list, just so he could be more special. Wolverine, don't have a dedicated title, just be an X-Men and don't guest star in everybody's books. Don't oversaturate yourself,
Other poll topics included favorite X-Men writers, with Scott Lobdell winning the vote with an overwhelming 58%, and favorite X-Men artist with Andy Kubert and Joe Madureira tying for the top spot. I probably brutalized Scott's name.
That's why everybody just calls him Joe Mad.
Joe Mad. All right.
Yeah, so I thought that was interesting. It's like, yep, everybody likes Scott Lobdell. He's writing what everybody's enjoying. Andy Kubert and Joe, it's just like, yeah, the guys on the main books. And then what books do we want to keep? The main books. Don't spin off Marvel. Do you get it? Do you get it now? We don't need a full X universe of books. Come on. Mini-series maybe, but not ongoing. All right. Well, guys, speaking of ongoing, this episode is going to keep on trucking. We got our table of contents coming up. Now, Wizard 62 with an October 1996 cover date featured a J. Scott Campbell cover, speaking of that rascal, which featured Spawn and Spider-Man side by side for reasons we'll get into shortly. Now, Wizard produced a poster to promote the issue, which J. Scott Campbell actually also did the art for, original art for this promotional poster, saying he was drawing the cover, but they didn't reveal that until it came out on the newsstands. And we have that. I will post it to social media so you can see the poster. It's pretty awesome. Now, the issue came packed with a Wizard Lady Death Chrome trading card, a Witchblade trading card, an AOL subscription disc, as well as a Jim Lee Fantastic Four poster. It also included was a coupon for the Astro City half comic from Jim Lee's Homage Studios, which was the new home of Kurt Busiek's wonderful, wonderful series. So that was all available in this issue. But our cover story, again, why are Spawn and Spider-Man sharing the cover? The main event is a bit of wishful thinking on Wizard's part, guys, hoping to use their influence to will a Spider-Man and Spawn crossover into existence. The issue also features a bit of false advertising on the polybag itself, with text declaring, Spawn Spidey, why it will happen, which it doesn't. Basically, Scott Beatty, who wrote this article, gives the pros, mostly without the cons, of why Marvel and Todd McFarlane should sign the deal ASAP. The main argument for the crossover is that, quote, quite simply, fans want to see it, more so than any Marvel versus DC or X-Men Wildcats collaboration. It's the ultimate no-brainer. Makes you wonder how Jim Lee felt about that last statement, though, right?
Yeah,
Nobody
seriously.
likes Wildcats, X-Men. Beatty also declares that, quote, Since the ill-conceived Spider-Clone storyline over the past year and a half, sales on all the Spider books have plummeted. So he posits, based on the suggestion from the owner of Golden Apple Comics, that, quote, Spawn Spidey could be the one deciding factor that puts Spidey back on top. The main obstacle, of course, that's discussed here is Todd McFarlane's reluctance to work with Marvel Comics again. Wizard tries to find hope, though, in a quote from Todd saying, quote, where he says, if Image collapsed, I'd try to call in every favor from every industry that I've ever worked with. And if they all slammed the door in my face, if I had no choice, then I'd go, well, it's time to eat some crow. But I've got too many opportunities right now. And as we know, Todd's opportunities only continue to grow over the years, his toy empire and his comics. So he never had to come crawling back to Marvel. And to this day, no Spider-Man Spawn crossover. Unless you count one cover.
That's quite a flex statement, though. You could say, yeah, you know, basically, if I'm really broke, I'll come back.
He recently did a cover of Overstreet Price Guide with Spidey and Spawn on it, I think.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. He'll draw them together. He's like, these are my two most popular characters I'm known for drawing, but it's like no full story, nothing.
Yeah.
But speaking of a full story, Wizard, again, just trying to get everything in place. Like, we're giving it to you. Please just make it happen. They have a pick a plot sidebar in which they provide 4 potential plots to facilitate the crossover between the webhead and the hamburger-faced ruler of the alley. So I have to ask you guys, seeing this here, which of these plots would you have picked? Or do you have one to pitch yourself?
Well, I'll let our guest go first because I want to preface by saying Adam sent this to me at like 4:30 in the afternoon. He's like, you must read this. And I'm like, I must go pick up my kids from school, then cook their dinner, then put them to bed. I will try. And I saw pick a plot, A, B, C, and D. And I was like, well, I'll skim it a little bit.
You're like, C is always the right answer on every multiple choice.
You bet. You betcha.
What do you think, Mike?
You know, the one where it's like a Spawn Venom hybrid, that kind of got me, especially at the time. I think I would have really dug that. And you know, Venom's always so popular.
That is kind of a cool idea, because when you think about it, the Spawn suit is a symbiote and Venom, you know, is a symbiote as well. So it works really well. Yeah, that's a good one.
And the same goes for D, the last one with Carnage, the Carnage Spawn. That was kind of cool as well.
Yeah,
go ahead, Michael.
I mean, again, I'm kind of just skimming this quickly. I do kind of like the D idea of like I think Carnage kind of translates better into the Spawn universe because there's so many demons and weird versions of Spawn. I don't know. That's kind of cool.
Yeah, so I'm going to read that one then, since that seems to be the favorite. So it says, after a battle with the Redeemer, a weakened Spawn is attacked by the Carnage symbiote after escaping confinement, minus Cletus Cassidy. Taken by surprise, the Spawn symbiote is forced off of Al Simmons, but not before hearing of the Carnage symbiote's hatred for Spider-Man and of its multiple defeats at his hand. As the Carnage-controlled Al rampage, the Spawn symbiote goes in search of the one man who can help, Spidey. After a brief tussle, the Spawn symbiote bonds with Spidey, explains all that has transpired, and fully bonds with him. Can Spider-Spawn put an end to the rampage of terror that Carnage Spawn is spreading across New York? That's pretty awesome. Spidey Spawn, come on.
That would be pretty cool.
Yes, I think that's definitely the word. We'll post these to social media so you guys can all tell us which one you would have picked.
Chains shooting out of his wrist instead of webs. That'd be kind of neat.
All right, now finally, the last thing here. Wizard is just they're begging. They make a final plea with another tiny sidebar titled "If You Send It, They Will Team," basically declaring that if Marvel and Todd get enough letters from potential readers / buyers, they will make it happen. Sometimes Wizard just too blatant in trying to influence the market, right?
It's kind of funny you say if you send it, they will team, because literally the night we're recording this is the Field of Dreams game in baseball, and they've been promoting the "if you build it, they will come" Iowa thing. It's kind of funny. It's just weird irony that we're recording this tonight and the game is on right now. So just putting that out there for all you baseball fans out there. So they're like, we're talking about comics. We don't talk about those bats and balls and gloves and guys exercising and being fit and healthy. Yeah, not us here. I'm rambling again. You can cut that off.
Get us back to those comics, Michael.
Okay. All right. Okay. In a Wizard special report 10 years later is a look back at Watchmen from the 1996 perspective of artist Dave Gibbons and writer Alan Moore. That's kind of cool. This is kind of exciting. Gibbons declares of the final product, I wouldn't change anything, while Moore states, it still holds up for me. In terms of what I wanted to do with it, I think it exceeded my expectations. But ever the party pooper, which he still is, Moore also gives readers who revere this era of comics a reality check. Everyone talked about a comics renaissance with Batman, The Dark Knight Returns, Maz, and Watchmen. Is that Maz? Mouse, right? It's Mouse, yeah. Mouse and Watchmen, but there wasn't any renaissance. It was just 3 or 4 blokes doing good books. It was no bigger than that.
So basically, nobody was doing good work. We were doing good work. They didn't improve the industry in any way based on
everything else was a dumpster fire. My stuff was Bible, and that's it. There you go, folks. What do you guys think about the impacts of Watchmen on comic books in the decades that followed? You know, has it made comics better or worse?
Better.
Mike, do you have an opinion on this and what you're finding in those back issue bins?
I think it made it better, but I don't think you see the effects of it in the 90s. I think like you see traces of it in Image and Valiant, but I really think it's in the early 2000s that you really start to see the impact of those books. I think it took all of the 90s and the Image creators to really push it, DC and Marvel, into new territory in the early 2000s. That's my
that's what I find funny, yeah, because it's like the 90s creators, when they read Watchmen and Dark Knight Returns, they're like, violence, yeah, violence, and so they just did a bunch of violent books,
yes.
And they didn't look at like the storytelling aspect, the deconstruction of the characters, all of that, and that's definitely the 2000s.
I agree. Yeah, totally, because if you think about it, in a particular comic like Watchmen, when you've got like a page that's got like 9 tiny panels and it lets it sort of breathe and you see certain things happening, that isn't really there as much in the 90s, but in that like 2005 to like 2009 era, you start really seeing that kind of thing, I think.
Yeah, because it makes me think of stuff like, Ex Machina and like those Brian K. Vaughan books. I feel like a lot of that kind of has some influence, not from like, oh, we're gonna take it all down and break it to pieces, but like a real different perspective on characters in comic books. Like, are they really heroes? That kind of stuff. So
another big,
better for the most part, but.
Another big one that I think is a real good reflection of the impact Watchmen had is DC's identity crisis.
Yeah, I was thinking the same thing. I was thinking exactly that. So that's where I feel like Marvel and DC were pushed to those limits to deconstruct their own characters.
Yeah,
finally,
because it's not like a big all-out battle at the end. It's just sort of like an emotional gut punch, and you're just like, wow, like that was a story. Like it wasn't just like just action and violence and whatever. It was just like, wow, that was a story, and that's kind of a cool thing, in my opinion.
Yeah, but action and violence were definitely making a little bit of headlines in some writers' books. So, Mike, why don't you tell us about this next piece?
The Wizard Q&A with Garth Ennis is an attempt to get inside the twisted brain of the man who created Preacher, Hitman, and was writing The Darkness, among many other titles. But it turns out he's not as insane as his writing would seem to suggest. Regarding the imagined dangers of reading his work in Preacher, Ennis remarks, If the book affected behavior, we would now have 50,000 more lunatics in the world running around killing people and shooting each other's faces off. On whether or not they have had any controversy with the book's content, Ennis clarifies, well, we haven't had too much trouble. People who don't like the book tend to drop it pretty quickly. When asked if being Irish affects his writing of certain characters like Cassidy from Preacher, Ennis reveals, yeah, I think it does inevitably. There's the whole hedonistic, eternal partygoer element to Cassidy's character, which I don't think anyone what is that, deny? Can deny?
I think
Has
it's
always,
will deny. Sorry, that's
oh,
my bad.
anyone will deny has always been a strong part of Irish identity. A sidebar reveals just how in demand Ennis was as a writer, where we learn that in addition to Preacher, Hitman, and The Darkness, he was also writing Wildcats, The Unknown Soldier, Enemy Ace, Pride and Joy, Bloody Mary, and finally Preacher, the story of you-know-who one-shot, about which Ennis reveals they wouldn't let us use Arseface in the title.
Oh, so this is interesting. Yeah, just when you see, I mean, Ennis just writes. And I do love his little, stroking of his own ego. He's like, when he talks about 50,000 more lunatics in the world, basically like citing his sales numbers. He's like, yeah, we're selling 50,000.
There's no way 50,000 comic book collectors are actually reading the comics. I would say like maybe 10,000 of them will read it.
Yeah. But I have to ask you, Mike, because last time you were on, you were talking about your love of horror comics and you love to seek those out when you can. So do you like the darker, like supernatural style stories that Ennis presents?
I think I talked, last time I was talking to you about this stuff, like this era is when, especially like superhero stuff, I wasn't really collecting except for Spider-Man and I think Silver Surfer and Hulk a bit. But I have to say Ennis is definitely a blind spot for me. I've read Punisher from him and I've read The Boys, but otherwise, and Darkness. Darkness was on my pull list at the time. That was the one comic I was reading. And I was obsessed with that and Spawn. But yeah, he's a bit of a blind spot for me. I don't know about you guys. Have you read a lot of Ennis?
Yeah, we've talked about it in the past. Michael got a little bit into Preacher, but not much. Didn't get too far.
Yeah, I tried Preacher. I couldn't get into it. Since the show The Boys has come out, I have read a couple of, I think the first trade, and I did like that. But yeah, I don't know. I know of his work. If I saw a cover, I'd be like, oh yeah, I know who that is. But
yeah,
I couldn't say a lot of them that I've read.
I don't know. To me, I guess what I like about Ennis when I read his stuff, and I've only gone back now for the show really to read his work, and like he's just a more nuanced version of his buddy over there who's creating did okay with Civil War when he had to work within the constraints of the Marvel universe, but then you get Mark Miller just off on his own, gets out of control, and Ennis is shocking, but somehow it feels justified in the characterizations. I never feel Mark Miller's characterizations justify the carnage that he puts into his stuff and the just sick twisted things he likes to write in. So yeah, so that's why I would always pick Ennis over Miller any day. But here's another interesting kind of twist on things that was happening at the time, because Valiant was very popular in the early days of Wizard. Valiant and Image, their two favorite publishers. But with a little help from my friends is a report from the first story conference of the new team of writers at Acclaim Comics, who were rebooting the Valiant universe of characters under the leadership of Fabian Nicieza. So for the record, this crew included big names like Mark Waid, Kurt Busiek, Christopher Priest, Len Kaminsky, Brian Augustine, Kevin McGuire, and wouldn't you know it, Garth Ennis, who they said was not present for the event because he was living in Ireland. But the titles getting a revamp included Exo Man-O-War, Shadow Man, Solar Man of the Atom, Turok, Bloodshot, Magnus, Eternal Warrior, and Ninjak. And then new titles created for this launch included Troublemakers, about a group of tween heroes, Trinity Angels as their entry into the bad girl cheesecake fad, and finally Quantum and Woody, that I've praised many times, about a humorous, bickering, heroic duo. So now I have to ask this: did any of these titles catch your attention in 1996, Mike? Or have you picked them up recently and added them to your collection?
I finally found Quantum and Woody in a 50-cent bin, the first issue, and I picked it up for you, but I have not read it because
Oh,
we
you
kept
gotta
talking
read
about
it. It's so good. I still have my original.
Otherwise, I kind of ignore all this stuff. Like, to be completely honest, I just don't.
This is why I like you. This is why we're friends.
You know, like the early Solar and Exo stuff, like when Valiant first started, I'll grab like the first few issues, like, or Harbinger, the first few I got out of 50-cent bin, but that's it. I won't go. I won't do this.
Yeah, I mean, I've mentioned many times, Quantum and Woody's the only book in here that I ever felt was worth anything, and I bought the first issue of Exo Man of War and didn't like where it was going, so I didn't continue. I liked, it was just totally off from, a guy gets abducted in ancient times and is put into our modern world, so he's a barbarian, but with high-tech armor. Like, that's a great premise. And then in the new version, basically all they did was say, oh, well, there's this, armor that the government has gotten a hold of, and there's a super smart guy who has figured out, how to, work the armor, and then he had, through a series of events gets bonded to it. But there was no twist. It was just like, oh, modern day sci-fi. That's not fun. Give me some history.
Yeah.
But I did go back and read some of these this week just to kind of check them out and be like, well, what about this Ninjak, where the kid is basically Captain Marvel, but he turns into a video game ninja? No. What about Turok, where he's, a cool college guy who has a pouch where he can pull out any number of weapons of ancient or mystical origin?
That just sounds dirty.
Yeah. I will say Troublemakers, I read that, and it's kind of like what if Power Pack was revamped for the 90s. That's what that is. It's not that great. So yeah, unfortunately, like a lot of these lasted a while. At least they kept bankrolling it. But I don't know that these are anybody's favorites, despite like the talent that we listed there. Everybody who's involved is kind of like, whoa,
Yeah.
but still couldn't quite do it. Now, the one thing I will say, though, is as far as what they were trying to accomplish, I want to get your takes on these. They had basically some ideas about, okay, will the Acclaimed Valiant universe operate in real time or on comic book time? Kurt Busiek calls it specifically fake time. Will there be real world religions mentioned in the books, or just made up faiths? Will they use real world science, or is magic a possibility? And will there be crossovers between the characters? Is that required? So on any one of those topics, do you guys have strong feelings when you're reading comics and they try to tweak or, go on one side or the other of those questions, that it upsets you, or you always say, oh no, it should be this way, I prefer this?
You're telling me magic's not real, though? Go ahead, Mike. Sorry.
I just want a good story. I really don't care. I hate, I read a lot of comics. I buy a lot of comics, and I get nothing frustrates me more than buying, like I in addition to buying 50-cent comics, I have a pull list still, and when I spend $4 or $5 on a book, and it's not even even the opening of story, it's just like shit happening, and nothing makes me angrier. That's all I care about. Put in whatever religion, fake, real, just make the story be good, please. I'm paying $4.
I know, because otherwise it makes you want to set the book on fire.
Yeah.
I will say, one of the biggest things in cinema, for example, is the idea as a writer and a storyteller to suspend your disbelief, like the audience's disbelief. That's why we believe in Lord of the Rings and Star Wars and all these kind of things. If a comic book, whatever they want to say about a faith or magic or science or made up stuff, if they can make the audience believe that in this world that's real, they gotcha. That's good. It's important.
Yeah, I mean, the only thing for me that has always been a question is that comic book time, the compressed time type thing, right? And like I always am interested, like the idea of, oh yeah, wouldn't it be cool to watch a character evolve each year? They get a year older, all of those things. But it's like I feel like, at least according to Joe Quesada, nobody wanted that. That's why you have to get rid of married Spider-Man. That's why you have to get rid of, approaching middle-aged Spider-Man and take him back, to his roots. And then the Ultimate Spider-Man is more popular because he's a teenager again and all that kind of stuff. So I guess like we kind of like the character in their best form, and you lock them in that time frame. That is what we want.
See, I disagree.
Okay.
Because I like 30 something Spider-Man, because it showcases how he's evolved as a leader and coping with all of his loss and pain. And as, because it's just like everyone says, we're all sick of seeing the Batman origin story. We're all sick of seeing the Peter Parker origin story.
But are we sick of seeing neurotic Spider-Man? Shouldn't he have gotten over it by the time he's 30 and he's still worried about his teenage problems? And he's still, I don't know.
I get that. I don't know. It's complicated, but
it is. And most people don't get over those things, as much as we like to believe.
I think the Ultimate Universe, though, was smart, right? Because then it could bring in the new readers who have an expectation coming in. Like, people who don't read comics have an expectation of who each character is. And you jump in, and all of a sudden it's like, what, Spider-Man's 40 and he's married? What the hell?
Yeah, and here's the thing. What you said at the top, Mike, just making a good story, is ultimately what Nicieza just lands on as the editor-in-chief, because they accomplished nothing concrete by the end of the summit. It says in the report that none of those questions are answered, and they just leave everything up to each individual creative team to do what they think is best for their book. That's what it comes down to. And it's interesting, though, to justify his seemingly wishy-washy leadership style, Nicieza states, quote, "Exactly what we needed to do was to share with each other. I feel best about building enthusiasm for each other's books, about sharing their characters. They all get to play in a sandbox where they're excited to be in." So he's basically like, yeah, we just needed to talk. Everybody just needed to say, yes, I have an idea. I needed to know they were going somewhere with their books. And so, yeah, so that's kind of ultimately his goal, was just to create a team, but they don't have to, set anything in stone. So there you go. And if you enjoyed the acclaimed Valiant universe out there, if you like these reboots, we want to hear about it. So hit us up on social media.
Okay, and our next article is Turning Japanese. Is an exploration of the influence of Japanese manga on American comics and their comic creators. Wizard just interviews the same group of artists about the topic who have already committed to the same topic. Sorry, committed or commented? I'm sorry.
Commented,
I can't read today. Let me just say that from the top. Turning Japanese is an exploration in the influence of Japanese manga on American comic book creators. Wizard just interviews the same group of artists about the topic who have already commented on the same topic in recent issues. So we're going to skip this because it seems like it's just redundant.
They just keep repeating over and over again the same stuff. It's like, yeah, J. Scott Campbell likes Masamune Shiro. Okay. Yes. So does Joe Mad. Okay. It's like, we get it.
Yeah. So instead, we're going to talk about a bonkers article titled King Fanboy, profiling a guy named Jeffrey Patterson, who has painted superheroes on the outside of his suburban home and gotten a Captain Marvel lightning bolt tattooed on his chest. Wow. Okay. Explaining what made him take his fandom so far, Patterson reveals that he got into a nearly fatal car wreck as his life flashed before his eyes, he thought, all I could think about was comic. Sorry.
Comics, plural. Sorry about that.
Sorry. All I can think of was the comics I had bought a few days earlier and that I would never get to read them.
Wow.
My life flashed before my eyes, and I thought, damn, I'm gonna miss Gen 13. All right. Okay. He and his wife were even married in superhero costumes. Wow, they're way ahead of their time on that one.
Yeah.
By a preacher dressed in a Captain Midnight costume after starting their romance in a comic book store. The 55-year-old gray-haired Patterson closes the interview by describing the mother of his 3 children. She's young and sexy. To me, she's a comic book character come to life. Creepy misogyny aside, if you guys could add a piece of comic book based architecture or interior design to your home with your wife's blessing, what would it be?
That's the caveat, right?
Adam, I'll let you go first on this one. I am fascinated what you think Kristen would allow you to do.
I know. Well, that's the thing, right? It's like I'm trying to think what superhero or comic book character has the best sense of style, right? Where she's like, okay, I guess nobody else would know but you that this is related, to to some sort of comic book. But also like, what is the comic book building or clubhouse or place I want to be. And I honestly, for me, I want the Sanctum from the Shadow movie from 1994. That's what I want. I want to have the moving brick wall. I want to go down. I want to have my my lounge just to hang out in, like that. I want that. So if I could build it, because it's super classy, so she couldn't complain. I'd be like, dear, look at that value we've added to our home.
Mike, what do you got? What are you thinking?
All I really want is just a room for my comics. Right now, they're just shoved into this kind of.
Do what I do. Build yourself a new house.
Oh my God! In Toronto, you want me to build a new house?
Oh God, it's crazy. Well, I'll tell you. Here's a fun fact, right? So I just turned 40 last month, and one of my closest friends and my wife were trying desperately to find something that was released a couple of years ago. Do you remember when they released the Batman 66 Shakespeare flip top head piggy bank with a push button thing?
Wow.
So my buddy was trying to find one, and now they're going on eBay and Amazon and everything for like $400. But he wanted to get it because he's a computer programmer, and he's like, we could program the button inside the head to open your garage door.
That'd be awesome.
And I was like, and you didn't buy this thing for me? He's like, it was $400. And I don't like you that much. But we were going to do it. If we could find it, I still will. If I could find it for a good enough price, we'll open it up. We'll program the button to do something in my house, like open my office doors or open the garage or something like that, and make it like a smart device.
Well, maybe, Michael, when you sell UFO Club and you and Steven get your royalties from a streaming service, then you'll have that $400 in hand to buy your Shakespeare.
That would be glorious, but my wife will take it and put it towards our house.
Well, maybe you could just put up a movie screen in your house and just have a projector room. So, Michael, why don't you take us into the latest comic book and movie news with
Heroes in Motion. That's a 1930s cinematography camera that just you have to crank, and that's what it sounded like. There you go. That's my sound effect for that. I got nothing for this one. Okay. Sorry. I try. Give me a break. Okay. The official formation of Marvel Studios is announced in this issue. Really? As Wizard reports, that Marvel Entertainment Group and Toy Biz have each contributed to $50 million to create an entity which will oversee the production of live action and animated feature films starring Marvel comic book characters. Wow. So that's when it was really formed, was Marvel Studios.
Can you believe that? Yeah, that it was 96. That's wild.
That's crazy. Our old pal Avi Arad will be the head of Marvel Studios, whose first order of business will be to produce 4 new animated series for the Fox Children's Network, which is down from the projected 20 new shows announced in the last issue.
Yeah,
Oh,
it feels like they were overshooting there. There's somebody
Yeah,
heard it
really.
wrong over the phone.
Over the next 20 years, we'll make 4 cartoon shows. You'll see. Don't worry. So, who could have seen Marvel Studios becoming the dominant force in Hollywood that it becomes 22 years later, or 20? I mean, because 2008 was when Iron Man came out, right?
Yeah, but I mean, it wasn't immediately. I mean, it took some time to build, right? You know, because I was kind of like, okay, here's this Iron Man movie everybody pretty much likes, and then 10 years after that, you're like, okay, Marvel owns everything.
Oh yeah,
and Disney owns Marvel, so now Disney owns everything.
Took that Disney money to get that Marvel Studios going real big. It's reported that Taco Bell has reclaimed the license for the Batman movie franchise to be promoted through their 7,000 restaurants nationwide when Batman and Robin hits theaters in 1997. Oh boy. It's like, hey, McDonald's saw the screen. They're like, we don't want this movie. Yeah. You can have Taco Bell. There you go. We say reclaimed because Taco Bell had Batman collector cups and branded cinnamon twist bags for the Tim Burton film in 1989, then lost the license to McDonald's for the 2 subsequent movies. So let me ask you guys a question. Do you have a favorite superhero themed kids meal toy or fast food promotion?
Oh, I have so many. You know, I still have a box.
I was going to say, yeah, there's been a lot over the years.
Yeah, I have a box still with just my Happy Meal toys in it. And I got to say, I think Batman Returns would be my favorite for sure.
The penguin one?
Yeah. They're like, that or what was the other one? Spider-Man the Animated Series had some good ones as well.
Yeah, those are pretty great.
Oh, really? I don't remember those.
Oh no, they had an actual Mary Jane toy you could get. I think that was the first Mary Jane action figure was technically in that Happy Meal. And then they had a transforming Peter Parker where the head flipped to like the Spider Sense head.
I remember that. Figure. Yeah.
The thing that's funny about the Mary Jane is her like action feature is like changing her dress.
We're going from day to night, guys. Here we go. I don't know if it's really classified as a Happy Meal toy, but that Batman Forever, those glass mugs, man. Oh, those are the best. I still have the Tommy Lee Jones one with the coin handle. Oh, it was.
Oh, those are great. My kids use that at my mom's house still. That's like my daughter's favorite mug. Is the coin one with Two-Face on it.
The best mug. I still have it. I have actually all of my Green Lantern and various lantern rings inside of it, and Grace always goes into it and takes that mug is cool. Like, don't touch the mug, you're gonna break it, please.
Yeah, I mean, I only had the Riddler one for all these years. I just got from my dad's house, but just today one of the members of the Retro Network reached out to me. Gary, shout out to you. And he's like, hey, dude, I have a full set of the Batman Forever glasses. You want them? I'll just send them to you. They need a good home. I'm like, I accept. Thank you. Plus, he's like, also, I have over 1,000 comics in my basement. I'm sending you the list. Tell me what you want. So the archives are going to continue to grow over here, Michael. You got to be obsessed with something. As far as with my side of the fast food promotions, as much as I remember Hardee's had these Marvel superheroes ones back in the day there was like a She-Hulk in a convertible, and there was a Spider-Man, like they all had cars, which it just cracked me up. But the one that was my favorite was the Burger King Superpowers cups. And I loved those figures that held the cups. I have a full set over here.
Oh, yeah.
You remember those?
Yeah.
I only had Darkseid, but man, that was an awesome cup.
I had like my original Superman and Wonder Woman all these years, and they're kind of beat up. And I just was traveling and stopped in an antique store and picked up a brand spanking new, beautiful Superman for like $5. So I was like, oh,
okay, you need to post a picture of those. I got.
I will do this. All right, Michael, what else? What other news we got here?
Sorry, we were talking about toys and Happy Meals, and I got lost in the sauce there. Comic book veteran Len Wein reveals that he has written an episode for the last season of the X-Men the Animated Series that teams up Wolverine and Captain America in World War II called Old Soldiers. Wein has also written episodes of Spider-Man featuring Venom, The Incredible Hulk featuring Sasquatch from Alpha Flight, as well as 2 episodes of both Street Fighter and a personal favorite of mine, Gargoyles, which I just saw on Disney Plus, and I'm like, yes, Gargoyles. I will be watching this again on the train. Fantastic show. That's kind of cool. I don't. Do you remember Old Soldiers on that X-Men?
Oh yeah, I've seen that episode. Yeah, it's pretty good. The animation's not great because it was later seasons of X-Men, but it's still a cool story.
It blew my mind when it came out, though. Man,
yeah,
seeing Cap and Wolvie together. Yeah.
I remember when they did like the Secret Wars thing on the animated Spider-Man show, but I forgot Captain America showed up on the X-Men show too. Exciting news for Jim Carrey fans: The Mask and Ace Ventura: Pet Detective cartoons on CBS will feature a crossover between the 2 characters, though not voiced by superstar comedian. The Mask was voiced by Rob Paulson, aka Raphael from the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, and Pinky from the Animaniacs, while Ace Ventura was voiced by Matt Frewer. Is that right? Yep. Okay. Yep. Who did his best Jim Carrey impression in the Generation X TV movie? Oh, this guy, yes. Yes, he was leaning into that like Filer Marshall Bill Jim Carrey kind of version that he had.
If they couldn't get Jim Carrey, you get him, right?
That's how it works.
Yeah. So, okay. Finally, we have a Kingdom Come casting call. Okay. Adam, what page is this on?
This is on page 42 is where it starts. So
Okay.
I should put that in the notes here.
How dare you? How dare you? All right, I'm almost there.
Yeah, sorry, I just want to say something about that dude that we read about who got the tattoo on his chest and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Oh yeah, we can splice that back in over there. Tell us all about it.
I remember reading about that guy and how he had those painted walls and thinking, man, this guy has the best life ever. This is what I want as a
This guy's living the dream, man. Living the dream.
He had a swimming pool. Everyone,
Yep.
His whole family wears superhero outfits all day long. And now I'm just like, oh, don't let that become me.
Well, what I thought was funny in the article, I'll just mention this, is that he says that the wife that's featured in that article is his second wife. I'm almost certain when he told the story about, I just couldn't think of anything but the comics I was going to miss out on. His wife's like, okay, well, this is over. I'll see you later.
Well, it's also, he made it specifically to say that his young wife, like
young, sexy wife. Yeah.
It's like, I landed me a whale here, baby. I got a good one. She likes comics. She's going to wear costumes. That's all that matters. She's letting me paint my house like a maniac. It's fantastic. All right. So, as I was saying, we're on to now the wizard casting call of the wildly popular, hugely successful Kingdom Come. And as always, I'm looking through this, and many of which of these selections I hate.
Well, it's hard, right? Because it's like, it's older superheroes, so you have to cast older actors who can play the geriatric DC heroes. Yeah. So it's like, do you know those characters? Did we watch any of their shows or movies?
Yeah.
Linda Carter, though, that makes perfect sense. That's a great choice there.
Yeah, fine.
Yeah, so that's kind of like the number one, right? Linda Carter, just let her be an older Wonder Woman because she's technically an older Wonder Woman. Even today, she still looks great.
And Anna Nicole Smith as Power Girl makes total sense for the chest.
Oh.
Not to number one fan of Power Girl, Michael. He's not happy about that.
Boo.
Well,
Boo.
The acting would be rough, but
But like they had an easy get in Pamela Anderson there. That would have been much easier.
You think Pamela Anderson is Power Girl?
Over Anna Nicole Smith? Yes.
Oh, I was just trying to think of a tough actress of the era that could just stuff her bra, like
you know who would be
Renee
good
Russo
actually
or something.
No, you know who would be good? Christy Swanson.
I could see that. She still was pretty young at this point.
Yeah, but like, I mean, she's older than what a Supergirl would be, and she play Buffy the Vampire Slayer, and
in the movie.
So
who I was actually thinking of for Power Girl? We're getting caught up on this, but is the actress from who left Star Trek: The Next Generation after one season. Do you know who I'm talking about? And she was in Pet Sematary.
Yeah,
Denise,
what was her name?
Denise something? What is it?
Denise. Denise Crosby. Is it that?
Yeah, Denise Crosby. Yeah,
okay, I can see that.
Because she's just like so tough, and Power Girl's such a tough character. It just feels like it would work out pretty well. So, but what do you think about for Superman there? An old TV actor,
Robert Urich. I don't know, man. I mean, honestly, what would be really kind of smart is if they really dropped the ball on one of these, but I'm going to come back to. But I don't know, Robert Urich. There's so many other actors I could think of.
Well, again, why if you're going Linda Carter, why are you not going to just put Christopher Reeve in as the older Superman?
Yes.
Just do it.
Was he paralyzed by then though?
Oh, that's right. It just happened. Oh, that's why. Your only choice was Dean Cain or one of the two guys who played Superboy.
Because George Reeve was dead.
Yep. It's tragic.
Honestly, who would probably have been a cool older Superman if he would dye his hair? It'd be like a Robert Redford kind of thing.
Ooh, that would have been cool. Yeah. He could play the troubled Superman for sure.
They really dropped the ball on the Batman, even though I love Gregory Peck. Don't get me wrong. He's a brilliant actor, but like this would have been your opportunity to give Adam West an older Batman.
Yes. It looks like Adam West. It looks like old Adam West in Kingdom Come. I don't know why I put that.
I know, but Wizard was kind of like anti-Adam West at this point. They had made some kind of like mean jokes at his expense, even after interviewing him.
Because they want gritty. They want all the grittiness. Yeah. Of the 90s. So next we have up is Ken Wall from the show Wise Guy as Captain Marvel. I don't know. This guy's. I would say no on that one.
I was trying to think of like, was there a beefcake actor at the time who kind of played innocent? You know what I'm saying? Like just like a nice guy, but a tough guy. And I was trying to think, I mean, just because I love him in everything, but the guy who played Thor in The Incredible Hulk Returns, and he was Little John and Robin Hood Men in Tights. I think he would have been really fun. Like just as somebody, because all he has to do, he just dyes his hair black, and I think he actually looks a little bit like the Captain Marvel in this.
Okay, well, I'll give you that. Sure, that sounds fair. Okay, for Aquaman, they have an actor named Richard Harris from The Field. I don't know who this actor is. I don't know who that movie is either.
Well, they're picking on like more recent movies and TV shows and stuff, I think. But Richard Harris is like a very classical, like British actor, So he was in all like the more of like the 60s type movies where he was like the heartthrob kind of guy. So
okay, fine, whatever. I guess it's virile and regal and whatever. Okay, now for Green Lantern, they have Robert Conrad. I'm like, really? You know what would have been great for this particular version of Green Lantern? Clint Eastwood. Like a gritty. Oh, I think so. Because he's just so gruff. And this Green Lantern would be such a breakaway for that kind of version of Clint Eastwood. And just this like real brave kind of, I don't know. I just love this.
Yeah, I mean, that's awesome. I just could never imagine Clint Eastwood in a superhero costume at all.
No.
But you know who does? Like they hit the nail on the head, I feel like, with Sean Connery as Oliver Queen as the Green Arrow. I think he would have the swagger. He would be great.
Yeah, he would be spot on. It's a very good pick. Yeah, that's a good one, I would say.
I mean, minus the accent, but what are you gonna do?
Yeah.
All he has to do is hide that accent, is what they said.
Now, the next one you have is the Specter, and
this makes no sense. They're just using a picture of Spock from what, Star Trek 4 to
yes,
yeah, because he has the hood on. Yeah.
Yes.
So yeah, they're saying Leonard Nimoy as the Specter, and I'm like, really? Like, really? This is the best you can come up with? You know, like if it were me, if I had to pick a character to play or an actor to play the Specter at this time, you'd want somebody really regal, like a Cary Grant or like a Sidney Poitier, and just kind of like this real kind of like almost. He comes on screen and takes your breath away. It's like, oh my God, it's Sidney Poitier in a superhero movie kind of thing, you know?
I mean, I could see that, but you know, when I read Kingdom Come and when they showed the Spectre, because they had like a brief at the very end of the story, you know, when he changes back into his human form as like the cop and he like kind of walks away. I always thought of David Caruso. You know, he's on NYPD Blue at this point, but I feel like he could have played like he was known for being a little bit more animated, but I'm sure he could have brought it down and done it. But I don't know. That's just me.
Did you ever see that movie with him and Nicolas Cage, Kiss of Death, where he's like this?
Is that wild?
My! It's like he's like a gruff like ex-con, and he's fighting after Nicolas Cage. It's a terrible movie, but it's like he can't escape that like Brooklyn dialect.
Yeah, well, but that's what I'm saying. If the Spectre was a New York cop, then it just makes sense that you get somebody who's been playing a New York cop to do the role. But what do I know? I might be wrong. Maybe he was a Chicago cop. I can't remember the origin city of the Spectre. But Michael, I got to ask you about the next one, because for Magog, you know, the villain or the 90s hero that sends all the, the classic heroes away, they want this guy, Richard Berg from the Sentinel. Don't know him. But when I see Magog, all I ever see is Bruce Willis. What do you think?
Bruce Willis would be great, but Bruce Willis would have to have like Schwarzenegger's build is the thing. Like, you know who I could honestly see, even though he's not that great of an actor, would be like a Dolph Lundgren in that character.
Okay, yeah, because you don't really have to have like too much of a personality for Magog.
Yeah, it's just gotta
violence.
Be the big, broad brawler. Now the last two down here, we have that Reverend Norman McKay, who's sort of like linked to the Spectre in this, and they have Christopher Plummer of another Star Trek reference of Star Trek 6. Is that, or is that 4? Is that
6? Yeah. You got it.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, why? Because he's got a gruff beard on his face.
Yeah, I mean, the picture they chose of him, he looks kind of like disheveled and drunk.
Homeless.
Like he doesn't look like a reverend, you know.
Like you could almost do somebody. I'm trying to think at this time who would look of that age.
Yeah, because it has to be somebody who's really like just almost kind of timid and just kind of like, where are you taking me, Spectre? What are you showing me? You know,
who would be kind of cool? Who's come up in other issues in the past? The dad from Frasier.
Yeah, that John Mahoney. I was thinking of that too. Yeah, he's on our brain.
Yes. And last but not least, is there more after this or no?
No,
yeah,
that's it.
That's it. Okay. Last but not least, Lex Luthor. And what they say here is, geez, this redemption, this rendition of Lex screams hard ass. And if there's one thing Lawrence Tierney, is it Tierney? Yeah. Yep. From Reservoir Dogs has proven is that he's a hard ass, basically. He's a bald dude. I don't know. Do you
know this actor other than Reservoir Dogs where he's appeared?
Yeah, he's a character actor. He pops up all the time. But like, I've always looked at like Michael Chiklis, like from The Shield, as a
you thought he'd be a good Luthor? Yeah.
Yeah.
Although I love this guy because he's from The Simpsons. He was in that episode where Bart steals Bone Storm. He's like, he catfish. You know, he just has that real gruff voice. He talks like this. Yeah, I don't know. I
Only
don't see
you
him
would
as
pull that
Luthor, though.
reference. Yeah, I don't see it either. But sure. Anywho, and that's our casting call for Kingdom Come.
Yeah, there you go. You know, we got a few good ones, but I think we had some great suggestions as well. But now, you know, I'm kind of interested to find out if there was, you know, any number of, you know, we talked about this way back when. And
I gotta stop. I got a transition for you. Hold on there.
All right, do it.
So that got me really hyped for a Kingdom Come movie. But Adam, what do we got in Jim and Todd's hype machine?
All right, look at this guy doing it.
You're welcome.
I was going to take us on a long walk again. All right. So, first thing here, the Wizard staff confesses to a heist at the San Diego Comic-Con 1996 involving Jim Lee. Okay, so here's what they have to say. We're thieves! Thieves! We're going to hell. It all started this past July 4th when the annual San Diego Comic-Con rolled around yet again. A Wizard strike team, Brian Cunningham, Scott Gramling, Andrew Carden, Scott Beatty, Buddy Scolari, and Jim McLaughlin, was assembled and shipped as freight to sunny California to meet the fans, BS with other companies, and see how much we could drink before being pronounced dead. Aside from the usual blurrily remembered chaos that normally occurs during these outings, the highlight of the trip was Scott Gramling's odyssey that started with eating a 2-day-old leftover cheese platter from the Chromium graphics party, which led to sneaking into Jim Lee's hotel suite while Jim was off playing poker, slipping into the artist's hot tub in his Winnipeg Jets boxers, seeing Buddy in red bikini briefs, and failing to score with a spokesmodel. The adventure wrapped up with Scott emptying a hotel minibar of beer and stealing Lee's bathrobe. Quote, "My only regret is that I ate all that cheese," a grimacing Gramling noted. "I can't crap." So
I was gonna say he learned that he was lactose intolerant and just started gassing up the place.
But the bottom line is they totally stole Jim Lee's bathrobe. This was told, I believe, in several episodes of the Wizard Files. I think Buddy Scolari was maybe the first to lay out the whole breakdown of what happened there. So if you want some of the details, you can go back in the archives. But I just find that hilarious because later on they auction off Jim Lee's pants. So they're just they're all about stealing clothing from Jim Lee.
That's so weird.
And despite that theft, though, there's also an ad opposite that story in this issue for the Jim Lee special issue, which we will be covering with a special guest in the near future. So stay tuned for that. But we got to get into some McFarlane Toys news here because Todd wants his moment in the spotlight. There are a ton of new Spawn figures being released, including Spawn 3 with a cloth cape, Wolf Spawn, Zombie Spawn with chainsaw and sawed-off shotgun, Mutant Spawn. Previously, they wanted to call it Chameleon Spawn, but they couldn't get the color change action to work, so now he's just Mutant Spawn. Also, Detective Sam and Twitch are both getting figures. Now, additionally, there is a strange character called Psycho Bum, which is described as including, quote, a weed whacker, jackhammer, switchblade, and a corn boy tattoo, about which they say, don't ask. But I went looking on eBay because I was just like, did this figure ever come out? Psycho Bum. That feels like that would not go over well, I guess, you know, like, and they didn't think so either. So I consulted our buddy Ty over at the Spawn archives, right? You know, he is our Spawn expert. And he said, yes, it was released, but it came out under a different name, which was much more, I don't know what you want to say, just like obscure. You wouldn't make the connection. He was called Crutch, and he came with a weed whacker crutch. So the weed whacker is how he walked around because he was missing half of a leg. But everybody knows him and loves him as Psycho Bum, if you were reading Wizard, apparently.
This is when McFarlane Spawn figures were really just going downhill, but their movie maniacs were really cool. So it was like you dropped out of the Spawn collecting figures and you went right into the horror figures.
Yeah, I mean, definitely. I mean, it was one of those things where you're just like, oh, wait, now they're making Austin Powers figures? What?
Yeah. What a weird time.
But he was trying to do his best to keep people interested in Spawn. It was mentioned previously that there was a new face Spawn that was sent only to retailers who ordered a certain number of issue number 50. But now they're calling it Wormhead Spawn because Wizard has seen the figure and they say it features long fangs and worms crawling through exposed muscle in the head. Ooh, Wormhead Spawn. So there you go. Now, next up here, the Wizard Buzzbox drops the rumor that Todd McFarlane will resurrect Miracle Man to be written by Alan Moore or Neil Gaiman and then be developed for a movie or TV project. Michael?
Oh.
Nope.
Show it to me, Todd. Show it to me. You. Wrong. Boom.
Now, also in this issue, the Wizard Fan Awards results are announced, and surprisingly, Todd only won the title of favorite inker at this point, where previously he was like favorite artist. He was, Jim Lee walked away completely empty-handed, unless you count Gen 13 being awarded favorite cover. And I don't even know what cover they were talking about. Is that the cover of Wizard for issue 44? Is that just one of the Gen 13 issues that came out? Like, so poor Jim. It really, if you look at the list, every winner was from Marvel. There was only a sprinkling of DC in the mix. So it really felt like the tides had definitely turned away from Image by 1996, and they were coming apart at the seams,
Let me ask you a question. A name we haven't heard in a while that was all over the books for probably 10 to 12 issues, that Stephen Platt guy. Is he on the list? So this is like we couldn't get rid of this guy for about, I'd say 3 months, maybe more. And all of a sudden we never hear about him again.
Yeah, I mean, he's not like the top 10 comics. He's not involved in there. He had been doing Profit for, Extreme Studios. And then after that, Supreme, he just kind of fizzled out. Yeah.
He was also doing Supreme at the time, wasn't he?
Oh yeah. I think he did a little bit of that too, but no, like Stephen Platt, not on the list, did not make it. So
wow.
his star had burnt out by this point.
And definitely the Todd thing makes sense though, because he was only inking by that point and doing the odd cover, but he was inking over Capullo's work.
Yeah, so I guess like only specifically that's the only title or the only award you could nominate him for.
Exactly, yeah.
All right, well, that brings us to our final tally here, guys. So Jim Lee in the lead once again with 11 mentions, Todd only getting 8, bringing our running total to Jim Lee 362, Todd McFarlane 368. Hot on his heels. 6 more mentions, Jim. 6 more mentions in your tide. Hey, why don't you make it 7? A lucky 7 and beat Todd. We'll find out how this plays out next issue. Stay tuned. But in the meantime, Mike, why don't you take us into some merch madness?
All right. Kenner is releasing a History of Superman and History of Batman 3-packs of dolls featuring real cloth costumes and 32 points of articulation for each hero from the decades of the 40s, the 70s, and the 90s. The sets by Kenner also include 4 collector cards of iconic covers from those time periods, one of which is a hologram. These sets currently sell for between $100 to $150 on eBay. Yeah, I wasn't familiar with these when I saw them in this issue.
Yeah, it's a weird decision, right? 40s, 70s, and 90s? Because the other thing that's inaccurate is they show like the 40s Superman. They show the cover, the card is Action Comics #1. That came out in the 30s. So they were not doing their research there.
No. Toy Biz speaks out on a rumor that the new Psylocke figure was rare because the head kept falling off the toy. Product manager Jesse Falcone replies, "That's total bunk," and clarifies that the final head sculpt was what held up the shipping on the X-Men Femme Fatale, of which only 500,000 figures were produced. 500,000 is a lot.
A lot.
Yeah. Toy Biz also reveals that the figure will be repainted to create the first ever Elektra toy. I feel like that figure was repainted a lot, was it not?
Oh yeah, well the Rogue and the Psylocke, it's just like, great, we have a female body, let's work it.
Yes. A ton of Batman merchandise arriving in time for the 10th anniversary of The Dark Knight Returns is previewed in this issue, including a cold cast porcelain statue of Frank Miller's Batman and Carrie Kelly Robin, a 224 page hardcover edition, plus posters and t-shirts.
Now, I have you guys seen recently the Carrie Kelly figure that's at Walmart these days? It's pretty awesome looking. I'm not a huge Dark Knight Returns fan, but she's the character that always kind of stood out to me.
The
And I was
McFarlane
walking
one?
through the toy aisle the other day. I was like, whoa, I don't need McFarlane. Yeah.
Yeah, no, it's a cool looking figure. I remember this particular Frank Miller porcelain statue though, because you see it pop up on eBay every now and again, like as like a thing. Yeah, I love the Carrie Kelly idea. What they did to the character in later Frank Miller things with like the Dark Knight 3 and the future iterations, they kind of, she becomes like Cat Girl or something like that at one point. It's a little kooky at times, but it's a cool character. They actually just introduced a new Robin in the Sean Murphy White Knight series, which is kind of cool. And this Robin is the sidekick of Jason Todd. That's kind of cool. And also a female Robin.
Adding to the Batmania is a 276-page hardcover book called Batman Collected, which contains 400 pages of rare Batman merchandise produced since the creation of the Cape Crusader. Some of it even from the collection of Andy Warhol. Huh. That I'd like to see. Yeah.
That's kind of cool.
Yeah. Did you guys know he made a Batman movie in the 60s?
I remember hearing about it, but I've not seen a thing from it.
But Michael, have you ever come across this book? Because man, I would love to see all these like rare items.
No, I've never seen this book before. It's kind of I bet if I Googled it, I'd recognize the cover, but I've never seen it. Batmania book. I'm doing some deep Googling right now.
Yeah, I was gonna say, try to find it. Well, I think it's called Batman Collected.
Oh well, fine then. Whatever.
I'm sure it's one of those books that they printed, 15,000 copies or less, and then you can't get it anymore. Nothing.
I'm looking right now. It's actually not that bad.
Oh, really?
Well, there's a 2001 version that was released.
So there was a reprint of it. That's cool.
It's only $88. And this is perfect for the comic lover. This is a wealth of rare Batman treasures drawn from the author's own collection and such fans as Andy Warhol and DC Comics archives. 400 illustrations, 5 color photos, and 5 gatefolds.
Whoa. Sounds like
$88.
a production. If somebody out there has it, shoot us a couple pictures. We want to see what kind of stuff is in there. All right, close this out here, Mike.
Finally, in the junk drawer section, Wizard begins a retrospective on all the DC Comics home console video games released since the 70s, starting with the Atari and up to the Super Nintendo and Sega Genesis. Most of the games star Batman or Superman, but JLA Task Force fighting game is mentioned, as well as an 8-bit Swamp Thing cartridge for the NES and even Game Boy game based on the John Wesley Shipp TV series. I did not know that existed. I know.
Is that awesome?
That's amazing. Wizard also reports that a Lobo fighting game was released for the SNES and Genesis, though it actually was canceled at the last minute.
Yeah, they're pretty harsh on it. They're like, it's the worst game of the year, in our opinion. Blah, blah. So yeah, it's pretty funny. So do you guys, like, speaking of video games that you played at home or even in the you can open it up, do you have a favorite DC Comics video game from the 80s or 90s you remember playing?
Yes. Let me
there was this Batman 89 game, and it may have been for
the purple Batman, one.
Yeah, I think so. DC was, I didn't play many DC Comics games. Like I remember a 90s Superman one that was like a side scroller, like the Ninja Turtles game was.
Yeah. The original Batman game.
I like because you go ahead, Michael.
Sorry, your audio keeps cutting in and out. Yeah, so the original Batman game, that was one of like the first games that wasn't Mario Brothers that I got, and it to this day is probably one of the hardest games I've ever played in my life. So hard, that game.
It really is. Yeah, it's super tough. And they even mentioned that the same company was about to lose the license. I believe it was Sunsoft. And so they made a quick sequel called Return of the Joker or something. And it was just like the same levels basically, but they just slightly tweaked things, like, but it was basically the same game. So I was like, I thought that was funny. I don't know. For me, I always really liked, there was a Superman game by, I think it was by Taito was the name of the developer. There was an game, and I just loved playing that one because you could like fly around and use your heat vision and all these cool things. You were literally like, instead of walking on a street and punching guys, was one of the levels, there was also a flying level, but you're just like kind of hovering around and punching, and I just thought it was so cool. Plus it had, you could, player one was the blue Superman and player two was the red Superman, so you would have blue and red Superman teaming up. So I thought that was kind of fun. It wasn't,
So that
this
that
was
one,
early late 80s.
oh, okay, yeah, because the one I remember is the Death and Return of Superman, playing that one in the 90s.
Yeah, I've gameplay footage of that on YouTube. That's a pretty good game, actually.
Yeah, it's cool.
All right, guys. Well, let us. Well, do you have a transition for the laughs into Rock's top 10?
I got this. We're gonna bring this train into the station because it's got a little off the rails here and there, but we're going back to an earlier topic about a character that we kind of made some jokes about. Is we're going to dive into our Turok's top 10 for issue 62. And this top 10 list is the top 10 ways Star Wars kicks ass over Star Trek, a rebuttal to Wizard's 60 top way, a rebuttal to Wizard 60's top ways Star Trek kicks Star Wars ass. Or whatever. I don't know.
Yeah. So basically, like,
it's horrible writing they wrote in that statement.
Yeah, in issue number 60, they did the opposite. They were saying why Star Trek was better than Star Wars. So now here we're going to find out why they think Star Wars can defeat Star Trek and make more sense.
Okay, so number 10. In Star Wars, every planet they go to looks cool and has neat aliens. In Star Trek, every planet looks like a blue screen backlot, and all the aliens are extras. Gene Roddenberry slept with.
Well, his wife was on the show.
But boy. All right.
Number 9. No lame ass prime directive stopping you from whipping ass.
What? Mike, what do you got for number 8?
When ships get hit in Star Wars, everyone rolls in the same direction.
Oh, but ching. Number 7. Stormtroopers may not be able to hit the broadside of a barn, but they're still a lot more threatening than a space-forcing Abraham Lincoln.
If you don't know, old Star Trek, they had an episode Abraham Lincoln actually appeared. I think several historic figures made their way onto the bridge of the Enterprise.
Okay.
Number 6, in Star Wars, all chicks are fair game. Heck, even your sister.
Number 5, Han Solo never had to degrade himself by shooting a baggy-suited reptilian alien with a hollow log and some charcoal.
Whoa, that's a deep hole. I don't know what episode that was.
No idea. My Star Trek knowledge is very limited. Number 4, you can safely wear a red shirt in Star Wars. Oh, see, I like those because they don't make me feel uncomfortable when I read them.
There you go. That's a safe one. Number 3, Luke Skywalker could kick Wesley. I'm getting all these. Luke Skywalker could kick Wesley Crusher's ass with one hand tied behind his back. Hell, Luke's cutoff hand could kick Wesley's ass with itself tied behind its back.
Oh, and
Poor Will Wheaton.
Number
Will
2, here's your
Wheaton.
awkward one to say, Michael. Kirk would have just used the Force to get some.
Oh boy, he sure would have.
That seems wrong.
Okay, and now the number 1, I will say, didn't age well, only because of what happens in the future, movie-wise, not person-wise, but movie-wise. Roddenberry equals dead. Lucas equals genius. They didn't see the Phantom Menace, I guess.
Yeah, if he's so smart, how come he's dead?
Yeah. What does he know about anything?
I can't remember if that was a Simpsons joke or I've heard that somewhere. If he's so smart, how come he's dead? Like, I don't know. That's great. Well, guys, there you go. Well, we don't know which side you were won over to, Star Trek or Star Wars, but certainly they are continuing to battle it out to this day. But we are not battling. We are having some laughs, and we're glad that you joined us and came along for the ride. Mike, thanks for coming back, man.
Thanks for having me. It was a lot of fun. I'm happy to be back. You'll have to have me on again. I'll beg you to be on.
Look, he's putting his bid in right there. He's coming back for more.
You're welcome whenever you want. You're happy. We love having you here. You're a very cool guy to talk to, and I just enjoy your social media as well. Where can they find you?
Well, you can find me at 50 Cent Comic Collector. That's pretty much it, really. You don't need to find me anywhere else, at least not right now. And I have I wrote an R.L. Stine movie, and it goes into production in a week. I think they go to camera.
Wow!
So maybe you'll be able
is
to
it a
find me.
Eureka's Castle live action film?
It's a live action film. It's a low budget Canadian film.
It's not Eureka's Castle, you weirdo.
Not Eureka's Castle.
Did you know he created Eureka's Castle?
No, you're blowing
That
my
is an
mind right now.
R.L.
Are you
Stine
serious?
production. Yeah.
I did not. Well, this is like a fairly unknown R.L. Stine book, I think. Are you guys familiar with Zombie Town?
No.
Yeah, it's a short novella he wrote. So yeah, you know.
And you adapted it?
Well, it's a complicated thing, but yes, it's somewhat adapted by me. I'd say loosely based on, because it's a very, very simple premise, and we had to expand it and make it into an actual full-length movie. But yeah, that's supposed to be coming to Hulu at some point. I'm guessing next year. I don't really know the plan.
That's awesome. Good for you, man.
And I brought it up at the last podcast, but my comic book, I have finally found a publisher. I am just closing the deal now, and they're planning to launch it on Kickstarter to begin with before it hits comic shelves. So that'll be coming.
Yeah, we'll spread the word for sure. That's fantastic. Glad to hear it.
Good for you. Congratulations. That's awesome.
And Michael, where can people find us on the web?
Oh, where can they find us? Well, they can find us on Twitter at Wizards Comics, on Instagram at Wizards_Comics. You can go to our TeePublic store if you want to get some merch. I just ordered us some stickers because I wanted stickers for some reason. And you can also go on iTunes and follow our podcast there and give us a 5-star review and let us know how you think about the show. You can also follow us on other podcasting platforms there's so many I can't keep track of. You can also check us out through the Retro Network. Adam does a lot of stuff with Mickey and Jason on, the waxback, paperback, comic back, whatever thing they do.
Bareback writer. Yeah.
Whatever you guys do. They have a lot of YouTube stuff and podcast stuff. Great content all around. Definitely, if you want to give us, chat with us, Twitter is a great place. Adam also posts a ton of stuff on our Instagram, still images from the episodes, or our YouTube channel where we're a little bit behind because I've been without a home for a couple months. I can't do any editing, but we're going to get some stuff up there hopefully soon of a lot of cool past videos and so on there as well.
Yep. Hey, and so we want to hear more from you. So reach out to us, find us. But in the meantime, keep your books bagged and boarded. Yahoo.